So I thought I'd make a video explaining how object replication, maybe not object replication, but at least how copying an object between buckets and editing metadata, all those features, how they work in S3. Because sometimes it's easier to just understand visually what is going on rather than writing it out in text and having to give a long explanation about the details of objects and metadata and copying and versioning and all that. So what I have here is a bucket called pbcc-cdn, and inside that I have a single file, which is a .json file. So if you let me just quickly show you what this contains. So if I open this, this is a file which has about 5.7 KB of data. It The tags are some date, a bunch of dates, then some strings in base 64, and I have two specific tags, cache control and content type, which have been added in response to the question that I had posed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first copy this particular object from this bucket to the next bucket to another bucket, and we'll see if the max age and cache control metadata get copied or not, and content type, of course. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to create a version of that same file, or the copied file, by changing the metadata from max age 86,400 to maybe 86,399 and seeing if it creates a new version or not. These are two questions which are based on an understanding of what an object is. So an object, if you look at the first question, if you know the answer to the first question, it is an object is the file and the associated metadata, which means that either editing the file or editing or wanting to change the metadata should create a new version. And that's what these two questions are based on. So here's the first part, which is to copy it from this bucket to the next. So technically, since you're copying an entire object over, everything associated with that object should get copied over, which means the file itself and the metadata should get copied from this bucket to the next bucket. So let's try that. So copy, and this time I'm going to choose a bucket which has versioning enabled. So I'll go back and choose pretzelbox-cc. This bucket has versioning enabled, so which will be useful for the next part of the question. So let's do that. Choose the destination. So I'm copying from, I don't know where. I'm copying from pbcc-cdn to pretzelbox-cc. Let's copy that. All right, so that takes care of that. So if I go back to my buckets list, open pretzelbox-cc, there's this big file which has been created called pretzelbox.cc some JSON file. So let's open this and maybe click on it, scroll down and see what's been copied. So my claim, as per the question, is that the file has been copied and the metadata, but not the tags. Oh, turns out the tags have also been copied. Interesting. Anyway, the metadata has been copied over, which means that it is not true that metadata will not be copied over and things like that. Now this bucket, so this answers the first part of the question. What gets copied over? The metadata gets copied over, and you can edit it also. So if you go to the metadata section and click on edit, you can change it from 86,400 to some other value, which will help us test the second part. But before I do that, let me quickly show you the setup of the bucket. So pretzelbox-cc has versioning enabled, which means that if I edit the metadata of that object, a new version should get created of that object, right? So let's try that. So I click on that, click on edit metadata, and this time I'll change this to, oh yeah, well, before I do that, let me quickly show you that, cancel this. All the versions, we don't have any versions of this show versions. So it's going to pull up a lot of files. So ignore all the index files and all that. Just notice that pretzelbox.cc and this big JSON name does not have any extra versions. There's a different versions for other files, but not for this one. So we don't have any versions right now. So I highlight this, click on what, maybe not within versions. Highlight this, edit metadata, change it from 86,400 to 86,399, which I can. Save it. No failed edits, everything went off smoothly. And now if I go and do a show versions, the claim is that, there you go, the old version is there, as is the new version. And this version, second version was created, or the newer version was created only because we edited the metadata of that file, which means that it discarded the old version and replaced it with a new version. So if I want to see its properties, so if I click on this and go inside it, this is the first one, this is the newer version. So if I go into the newer version, the metadata should say 86,399. And if I go to the previous version of the same file, is there a way to get to the versions? Maybe not. Do a show version, and I pick the previous version, the max age is 86,400. So this proves that when you edit a metadata on a file, on a versioned file, it will create a new version. And this sort of also ties back to the original knowledge that a file is not just the file, an S3 object is not just the file, it is a file and the metadata. So hopefully this will clarify things on a few questions. Anyway, hope this helps. Thanks.